because there are two types of investments in a law firm: your team and your marketing. Everything else is an expense. Team and marketing are your biggest investments that have an ROI, return on investment, that should be measured, monitored, managed. And here's what most people need to hear about a budget. A budget is not a cage. A budget is boundaries. And what those boundaries are protecting is your future self. AI has come onto the scene and really made every industry question, how is AI going to affect this area? And
welcome and thank you for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Mina and I'll be the moderator for today. And now to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker today, Chelsea Williams. Chelsea Williams is a financial expert, Forbes Advisory Board member, and the founder of Core Solutions Group Incorporated, a financial services firm dedicated to helping law firms turn financial confusion into confident, data-driven decisions. With nearly a decade of experience, Chelsea and her team have empowered hundreds of law firm owners to stop guessing, start measuring, and finally take control of their money. Through her proven framework, she teaches that money isn't just math, it's a mirror. When you learn how to read it, you don't just grow profits, you gain power, clarity, and freedom. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour. And Chelsea will be taking questions from the audience, time permitting, towards the end, but you can feel free to submit any questions in the Q&A. So that's going to be a button in your control panel. Click the Q&A button, go ahead and send in your questions, and we'll get to those just as soon as we can. Now, without further ado, here is Chelsea to discuss the financial intelligence revolution, how AI is transforming law firm profitability.
all right. Hey, hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I love talking about money and finance. I am definitely a nerd through and through, but I'm a cool nerd. And my goal for you today is just to make finance less pressure, less scary, and really help you to start make sense of things. And also, AI has come onto the scene and really made every industry question, how is AI going to affect this area and that area? And so we already have a lot of areas in our business, in your law firm, in my business, that are being affected. So I want to tie in the conversation today around how to really use AI when it comes to your law firm finance specifically. And I want to open it up with a question. Can everybody throw just a simple chat? Let me get this off the screen here. Throw a message in the chat, say hi, let me know the messages are working. I want to really see your responses here. I got it. Okay, I can see everybody. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. So I want to ask everybody a question real quick. And listen, I know that finance is an uncomfortable topic. It's not something that most of us grew up discussing at the dinner table. Our parents were never taught. They weren't very open and transparent about it. And it can be a very sensitive subject, but I want you guys to work with me here and answer a quick, simple question. I have 2 questions for you guys. So my first question is, if I was to ask you what your revenue was last year, so we just closed out 2025. If I was to ask you what your revenue was from 2025, just put a me in the chat and just say, yes, I could tell you, I know how much I made last year in revenue. Good. So we've got some people participating. Thank you. Again, I know money is not an easy topic to talk about, but that's one of the things I really want to help with today. So then as a follow-up question, how many of you know how much you kept in profit from that revenue in 2025? Good. Good. Now, when I'm in front of a group, I do a lot of speaking engagements. And when I'm in front of a group of people, I love opening it up with this question, because here is what we tend to see. We're really, really good at tracking and knowing how much money we make. But tracking and knowing how much money we keep is a completely different thing. And when I'm in a group of people standing on a stage, when I ask that first question, I see hands go up. Everybody's really, really good at knowing how much they make, right? And as soon as all the hands go down and I ask this second question, a few of them will pop up. And what this means, what this is showing us, is that revenue is irrelevant if you can't keep any of it. And so here's where we need to give ourselves grace. School did not teach you financial literacy. There are a few states now that require it, but it has not been a requirement. You'll still get a credit card application in the mail when you're 18 that's really good at the information that we are given is really good at teaching us how to spend money and how to accumulate debt. What nobody taught us was how to keep more of what we're already making. And when it comes to business, keeping more of what you're making should be goal number one. Why? Because if you're not keeping any of what you are already making, your natural thought is to say, oh, I need to go make more revenue. I need to go make more. More money will solve my problems. And if you're not keeping more of what you're already making, more money will only amplify the chaos. And so here's what I want you to hear. This does not mean that you have a character flaw. We are not flawed for not understanding money and how to leverage it and keep more of it. It doesn't mean there's something fundamentally wrong with us. It is simply because no one ever taught us. So what I love to do is I love how to teach law firm owners the condensed version of what they need to know of how to be a CFO of their law firm and their life. So CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer. That's me and what I do. And I love teaching people how to be the CFO of their law firm and life because if we don't understand how to manage money on a business level, we can't understand how to manage money on a personal level. And the way that we as business owners manage our business finance, it's the same exact way we manage our personal finance. We are doing the best we can with what we know. So coming here and starting to teach on how AI can really help you get a clearer financial picture. I decided after testing AI a little bit out on, what type of advice it would give you, that instead of sending you off to a generic chat GPT when we're done here today, I'm actually going to give you access to a CFO bot that I have been building for law firms in chat GPT. How about that? Does that sound good? So if you don't know who I am, my name is Chelsea Williams. I'm a chief financial architect and CFO for law firms across the entire country. I've spent almost 20 years helping law firms like yours keep more of what they're already making, determine how big they want to grow, because that's a question not a lot of us are asking either, is how big do you actually want to be? How much money do you actually need to be financially free and by when? And also to help law firm owners stop believing that struggle is a necessary evil to growth. Because of what I do and how long I've been doing it, I know that statistically, a lot of you in this room are avoiding your numbers. And I also understand why you are avoiding your numbers, and that's all valid. But when you start using numbers when you start speaking the language and you start using numbers as a guide, as a compass to really understanding your options, because you always have options, and how to weigh them, it unlocks a whole new world for you. So when I started in accounting, I thought it was all about spreadsheets and tax codes. And I still did it, yes. So then I realized it's really about people and their money stories. Every single person in this room is carrying a money story with them. When you make money, when you spend money, that voice in your head that you hear about how much is good and bad, what you should and shouldn't be spending on, what's a good decision, when you take out debt, there's this voice in your head that was given to you when you were young. Now, I grew up in a family where money was either a source of stress or silence. And later I would come to work with law firm owners making millions, but they were still terrified of their numbers. So we have $1 million firms, empty bank accounts. That's when I realized there is no such thing as a money problem. There are only problems showing up in your money. Now, AI doesn't have those stories that are in your mind. It doesn't feel fear or shame. That is our human advantage. And real financial leadership is emotional intelligence translated into numbers. So, what happens when human intuition partners with AI machine precision? That is where the modern CFO is going to live. So, in the game of money, you're either a player or a pawn. And if you don't know which one you are, congratulations, you just realized you're a pawn. We're going to change that. Now, to become a player, you have to think like a CFO. Now, some of you are frustrated because this is the first time you're hearing about a CFO, or maybe you're going to your bookkeeper, your accountant, your tax preparer for CFO level advice that they can't give you. And so you're really frustrated. I just went to Max Law Con in October in Nashville, and I met a law firm owner at our booth who said, "Oh, yeah, I have one of those. I have a fractional CFO. I don't know what they do, and I don't talk to them, but I have one." So, not only are we not understanding who our financial players are, but we are also abdicating our role in finance. Finance is something to be delegated, not abdicating. Because when you abdicate your own understanding of how your firm finances work, you leave yourself exposed to depend on other people when something happens, and more so when something needs fixed. So thinking like a CFO means that you no longer have to use your gut to make decisions. You don't have to work 60 hours a week because you don't know if you can afford to hire help. Questions like that become very clear. You don't have to cross your fingers until payroll clears, wondering where all your money went and taking out loans to cover operating expenses. And some of you feel that pit in your stomach right now because you know what I'm talking about because you've experienced it. And that's exactly what we're going to face head on together. Because you started a business, not a hobby. And you don't have to choose between making great money, working less, delivering superior services, and taking care of your team. You can do all of those things if you learn how to use numbers as your compass. So I would imagine that if this was my audience and I could see everybody and I asked you, like, who here wants all of those things? Who here doesn't want to choose between making good money, working less, keeping your clients happy, and their team happy? I would imagine every single hand would be up. So numbers aren't here to stress you out. They are here to guide you so that you can stop reacting and start anticipating. So even if you have hired a fractional CFO, you should learn this hat before you fully delegate it. And that's not a burden, that is a superpower. Because if you learn this hat now, you'll use it for the rest of your business life. No matter what size you are now and how big you want to grow, the thing about finance is that it is very simple and it is very consistent in terms of what to look at when. But if you hand this hat off too early, you'll spend years blaming other people for your money problems. And AI will send you off a cliff because you don't know the right questions to ask, and you'll accept generic advice that end up derailing your operations. So here's what you need to know. After almost 20 years of doing what I do, I've been able to distill law firm finance into these three pillars. The foundation is what positions you to stop guessing and using your gut and start looking. So to have a solid foundation, we need the bare minimums. We need to outsource bookkeeping, and not to cousin Sarah's husband, who's a CPA. We need to outsource bookkeeping to bookkeepers and accountants that understand law firm trust accounting. You need a tax strategy. There's a difference between preparing a tax return and curating a tax strategy, especially if you are in the realm of $60,000 to $90,000 in net taxable profit. If you're working with your tax preparer right now and you are paying taxes on over $60,000 in net profit, you probably have room to curate a tax strategy that's going to account for not just this year. It's going to account for 3 to 5 years in the future if you have the right tax professional on your team. And ultimately, what you get from the foundation, that deliverable that you as the CFO see in your hands every month, are your monthly financial reports. So that's the foundation. When we move into the framework is what allows us to get out of the rearview mirror of the past, because your financial reports tell you what's already happened. You can learn from it, but you can't change it and you cannot direct it. The framework is where we get out of that rearview mirror and we start mapping the future, planning for profits, and protecting cash. What that means is that, yes, you need a budget. And here's what most people need to hear about a budget. A budget is not a cage. A budget is boundaries. And what those boundaries are protecting is your future self. Go outside of those boundaries, and what you stand to lose is not money. It's freedom. A budget can be liberating. Secondly, a 12-month at least rolling forecast. What this means is we're using historical financial data to forecast your performance into the future. Everybody's revenue, expenses, profit, tax has a formula. And you have a nerd like me that can help you uncover those formulas. You can now, with a reasonable amount of accuracy, project into the future what your finances are going to look like and forecast different scenarios if your marketing goes well, if your salesperson closes enough of the leads. If this, then here's your financial picture. And that is peace of mind and direction. And it gives you something to measure. You cannot measure what you cannot see, and it gives you a very black and white unit of measurement. And then you have to manage cash. So when you look at your income statement is basically a tax report. It is your taxable revenue minus your tax deductible expenses, and leaves your taxable income, what you're taxed on, what your tax preparer is looking at right now this time of year. What your net income is not is cash flow. And this is a point of confusion for a lot of people. Your cash deserves its own system to be managed. And I can't see people, but Profit First. If you've ever heard of Profit First, it's a book by Mike Michalowicz. This system works without fail, no matter what type of a business you have. Contingency, fee, flat fee, hourly. Profit First is a cash management system that will change your life. So that's the framework. Now, the Flywheel, this is made up of touch points and systems to monitor our progress and alert us when something's off. Once you have the foundation and the framework, you have built your financial systems, and it is only a matter of managing those systems, coming to the table, facing these reports, even if you don't know what you're looking at and it makes you frustrated because you don't understand those reports. If you keep coming to the table and keep asking questions, you will start to understand. It is only a matter of time. It is not if, it is when. So the Flywheel consists of KPIs, which are key performance indicators. And each KPI, your numbers are a reflection of every single part of your firm. From marketing and sales predicts revenue. Your team utilization, your team productivity tells you how profitable your investments are, because there are two types of investments in a law firm: your team and your marketing. Everything else is an expense. Team and marketing are your biggest investments that have an ROI, return on investment, that should be measured, monitored, managed. So key performance indicators are those needle movers that we can keep an eye on without digging into the weeds. And if they will let us know if, when, and where we need to go digging if something gets off track. Those monthly financial reviews. So if you're reviewing your financial reports, once you get the hang of it, you're only going to be spending 10 minutes looking at your income statement, your balance sheet, your budget variance, your cash flow statement. 10 minutes a month. Once you master and understand these reports, what you'll find is that these reports are really telling you where to go dig. They're very high level mirrors of what's going on. And when you know what's happening behind those numbers, you'll know, oh, I need to go talk to my marketing team because we're getting fewer leads and our revenue's going down. Oh, I need to go talk to my sales team because leads are higher than ever, but we're not actually converting clients. Or I need to go look at my team productivity reports because the leads and the conversions are there, but the money's not. Or I need to go look at accounts receivable because I know I'm billing everybody out, but clients must not be paying. 10 minutes a month is all you need when you know how to properly look at your financial reports to get what it is that you really need. So, how does AI fit into the 3 pillars? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you exactly how I started testing ChatGPT to see if I didn't know anything about finance, is ChatGPT a good tool for me to use? And here's how it went. So we know with the foundation, we need bookkeeping. Now, when I went to talk to AI about this, I already know that ChatGPT, they're not going to do your bookkeeping. They're not going to go into QuickBooks or Xero or whatever your bookkeeping platform is and actually do your books. So bookkeeping is off the table. Now, what has happened since I tested this is that QuickBooks and Xero are both beta testing AI to be able to do your actual coding of transactions. What does this mean? It means it's going to take a lot less time to maintain your books. But here's the thing, and we're preparing for this in my firm. This is how AI is affecting my business. It's going to save us time on the actual bookkeeping function, but it's going to make it even more important that we know how to review financials to catch the errors, because the software relies on pattern recognition. If things have been coded wrong for a while, it's going to keep up with that wrongness. So you still have to review the accuracy of the books, even when AI does them for us, at least for now. Three-way trust reconciliations. Now, not only did I know ChatGPT doesn't do three-way trust reconciliations, which is probably the most important thing for you from a liability standpoint, it actually started to try to tell me that it could. But then I started asking it more specific questions, and it's like, oh, wait, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And not only can't you do it, it shouldn't, because of confidentiality. So three-way trust reconciliations, at least for now, still up to humans. Now, what about tax strategy? When I asked it if it can give me a comprehensive advanced tax strategy, it said, yeah, I can definitely do that. And so I started asking it specific questions, and what I found is that the advice is generic and widely available. You can get just as generic and even misleading information from TikTok and Facebook Reels. It will not replace a really good tax preparer. I mean, it's better than a tax person who's not going to give you any advice, but it's definitely not as valuable as an actual tax strategist, because what it doesn't do is ask you the right questions to truly strategize with you. A tax strategist can collaborate with you and teach AI over time, and that's pretty impressive. All right, so what about the quality of financial reports? How good is ChatGPT at, when you give it your financial reports, how good is it at giving you relevant feedback? So what it cannot do is confirm accuracy, because we have to match bank statements to ending balances, and it doesn't do that. It doesn't even mention that it wants your bank statements to make sure that it's accurate. When it comes to your chart of accounts, and so this is why I have two financial statements here. Your chart of accounts is basically how you describe your revenue and your expenses. So these are these same exact numbers, same revenue, same expenses, same net profit. The only difference is how it is presented to you. Now, this is why a lot of you are lost and frustrated when you look at your financial statements, because they're not organized. There's no visual organization for you to make sense of. And our brain really depends on visually digesting information. So this one on the left, you can see there's no grouping of expenses. It's just legal revenue. We have no idea how much each matter type is contributing to top line revenue. But on the right, we can see that, great, I made $1 million, and these are the exact matter types that contributed to that $1 million. And I spent $87,000 on marketing, and here's exactly where I spent it so that I can measure and calculate my ROI on SEO, LSAs, directories. And here are my team expenses so that I can quickly calculate how profitable my billable team members are, my paralegals to my attorneys. So this serves as an example of how important it is that your financial statements are visually organized to help you make better sense of them easier. And when I asked ChatGPT about the quality of the chart of accounts, it was pretty good. It did a pretty good job of saying, hey, your chart of accounts is really generic. Here's what I would do to break it out. It was pretty good at that. The income buckets are vague on the one to the left. The one on the right, they were very specific. So ChatGPT did ask about this. So I would all in all say that ChatGPT is pretty good at least looking at your financial statements and helping you organize them better. They're going to make a lot more sense to you if they're organized visually well. So how good is ChatGPT at creating a budget and a forecast for you? It's better than nothing. The forecasting was very generic. You can see it, they averaged it out over 12 months. There are no seasonality trends in here. A lot of you experience seasonality. But the thing is, if you give it enough of the right data, it could be pretty good. But again, if you don't know from a CFO perspective which data to give it, it's going to spit out this very generic thing for you. So it's lacking that human guidance. And a lot of what I do is coaching, maybe even some money therapy in some cases, but it is lacking a lot of that human guidance because again, it doesn't have the story, it doesn't have the narrative that you're fighting in your head to really stop struggling with what you're struggling with. Now, the cash management system, this is an example of the Profit First calculator that I use when I make my transfers. So when I fed it to ChatGPT and I was like, hey, tell me what my percentages should be. And I even gave it the Profit First book material to say, hey, what should my percentages be? And what happened was that team totals, the team percentage was wrong because of how I use my profit account. I distribute quarterly team profit sharing out of that profit account. So it did not account for the nuance I created in my system. The operating expenses were outdated because of the annualized amounts that it had included. And so that percentage, because we're supposed to update this every quarter, it didn't account for that. And taxes were not calculated quarterly for actual. It was just putting aside a generic amount. So again, much more accurate when you actually know the system for yourself. And as long as it's going to take you to fiddle with ChatGPT for a lot of this stuff, it's going to take you the same amount of time to just do it yourself. And then you have a better understanding of how to implement some of these systems. So I would not recommend it for helping you set that up. And as far as the flywheel, here's what it boils down to. ChatGPT is only as good as the data that you give it and the questions that you ask. And without having a real solid understanding around what a CFO is, how a CFO operates, what they look at, you probably don't know which questions to ask. So what is the solution here? Here's what I think. You need to work with and learn from a CFO who will collaborate with you and with AI. Money is 20% mechanics. That's it. The other 80% of it is in our heads and in our habits. And that's where AI will not serve us. So I want to also give to you today 4 hard truths that may sting a little bit, but I know you need to hear them and it's going to serve you very well. More revenue will only create more chaos. It will never solve underlying problems. More money won't fix the bad habits. You have to understand what it is that's happening in your money that's going wrong and realize what the proper solution is so that when you make more money, you also keep more of it. So this is how to determine your cash flow. So again, that question of, well, I don't know how much I'm making, especially if it's not that bottom number on my income statement, how much am I keeping? The answer to that is where your income statement stops. So this is a real life example, by the way. This firm came to me grossing $7 million annually in revenue. And the first bad month, the owner had to skip a paycheck and take out a loan, had no idea why. Couldn't figure it out. This is why. Where your income statement ends, for example, his was showing a profit of $50,000. You have cash coming out of your bank accounts that you will never see on an income statement. Why? An income statement is taxable activity. If you take out a loan, the principal payments to pay that loan back are not tax deductible. The loan proceeds weren't taxable. Paying it back is not tax deductible. So after net income, the things that are coming out of cash that you'll never see on your income statement are things like taxes you're going to owe, principal payments to debt, and your owner draw and distribution. So once we showed him this, it was a lot more clear of what really happened here. Like, how did I run out of cash and I didn't see it coming, I didn't know, and I had to take out a loan? And look, AI can tell you these numbers for the most part faster than you can blink. And it's great at giving you generic advice on how to solve your money problems. But what it comes down to is that you have to take action. Between a CFO and AI, we can give you solutions to your money problems, but taking action is what's really going to change things. And so what we do is we reverse engineer actions with a framework. The framework is what holds us accountable to what needs to be done, and the actions are a byproduct of that framework. So here's another truth, because this is what a lot of people are doing. AI can make reports pretty, but it can't make you look at them. And I know the reasons why a lot of you are avoiding your financials, if that's you, but here's the truth. The fear never disappears. You just learn how to move through it and with it. And numbers aren't the enemy. They are actually the roadmap to solving the problems that they are bringing to your attention. It may be uncomfortable to look at, but it shows you exactly where to get to work and take action. So in the case of this law firm that we were working with, we looked at 3 different areas that we could tell cash was leaking, that the numbers told us, look there, there's a problem there. And that was they were missing leads, and we quantified it. They were missing leads totaling $252,000 annually. That's how much it was costing them to not answer the phone, to not follow up with people who were calling for their services. They also had poor conversion rates. Their salespeople were not converting at a healthy percentage. And we quantified that too. That was over $500,000 in the year that we were looking at that they missed because their salespeople either needed training or to be replaced. And then we looked at build time lost, utilization rates, and quantified that. And that was a little over 140,000. So all in all, we found almost $1 million in lost revenue due to avoiding looking at the numbers, tracking KPIs, and holding team members responsible to expectations. Systems don't complicate your firm. They really free it. And if your firm runs on duct tape and adrenaline, AI will just give you faster chaos. Systems are what will set you free from the grind. And that's exactly what we did in this case. So being able to fix the revenue leaks, we were able to trim some fat and expenses. They had software fees they didn't even know they were still paying for, that they weren't using. They were overpaying in insurance. We went through and did a complete expense audit, put a lot of it back into the owner's pocket, and put systems in place for regular expense audits so that this stopped happening. We implemented a tax strategy. We helped them find a good tax strategist because we don't do taxes, but we coach people on how to work with tax professionals. We helped them implement a tax strategy, which lowered their effective rate. And we were able to put more cash in the owner's pocket, as well as build 3 months worth of padding in those bank accounts, so that now that they had that visual, those KPIs, when they could see cash decreasing, they now have 3 months to fix the problem without freaking out, skipping a paycheck, and taking out a loan. So we walked them through our framework, created systems, and corrected the issues that the money was showing us. So these are the 3 pillars. This is what we mean. And truth number 4 is, now that I've shown you exactly why, if you can't manage where you are now, you can't manage where it is that you want to go. So until we're able to look our numbers in the face, swallow the hard truths, and take action to rebalance your profit equation and protect profits, these problems will persist. And so these truths may sting a little, but they are the medicine. They are the cure, because avoidance keeps you broke and awareness builds wealth. Now, I have firms bringing in $750,000 a month, for example, and they were making and keeping more than that $7 million firm, because they built systems and clarity early. So what I want to say is, stop telling yourself that you'll get your finances together when things slow down. They won't. Stop waiting for something to happen for you to implement in your firms. Everything that you're learning through this event, take action and implement them, because if you don't have time now, I promise you won't have time later. It'll only get harder. The habits that you build now in your firm, no matter where you're at, if you're a solo and your dream is to build your firm to a $7 million a year firm, the way that you treat your firm today is going to dictate where your firm goes. So start treating it like the firm that you want it to be. All right, so here is the QR code to get access to my custom CFO GPT. If you're interested in working with AI when it comes to your finances, I've built this GPT to help you steer clear from some of the generic advice. It is trained on law firms' finance specifically, so it'll know the questions to ask you, and how to help you really navigate law firm finance specifically. And, the key is you have to start somewhere, and it's about compounding your knowledge. I promise you, you guys graduated law school. You can understand finance. And part of that is really recognizing, again, that money story. Everybody has a money story. Everybody. When I was growing up, my dad was a truck driver, and the only time I saw him was 4 a.m. when he would make oatmeal for me and put me back to bed, and 8 p.m. when he would read me a chapter in my book and put me back to bed. I grew up with the understanding and belief that I had to hustle, grind, sacrifice my health, sacrifice the people that I loved the most, with time with them, because the noble way to earn money that I had been taught was to work, to a fault. And that was a belief that I really had to recognize in my mind. And when I started doing things differently, it was uncomfortable. And if you have those voices in your head that are telling you about what is good, what is bad, what is acceptable, how you're supposed to spend money, how you're supposed to make money, how much is good, you're going to have to do the same thing. Recognizing that voice, naming that voice. A lot of us can really get clear about, oh my gosh, that's my dad in my head. That's not even what I want to believe. That's my dad telling me that. Or that's my grandma telling me that women don't have a seat at the table when we're talking about finances. Women shouldn't be involved or know these things. When you start to just pay attention to those voices and you start to untether those false beliefs from money as a tool, things will really start changing quickly for you. And money is absolutely a tool. It is a reflection of its user. It is 20% mechanics. It is the easiest thing to manage and stay on top of. Our website has a lot of really, really good free resources, yourcoresolution.com, where we have free calculators. We have really good blogs. I mean, I really, really love doing what I'm doing with you guys here today. And making sure that everybody knows, their money story, and not only the 20% mechanics, the framework of here's how you manage your money, but also how to manage the emotions and the beliefs behind it. Because here's what happens so often with what I do. I have a step-by-step framework for law firms, and it tells you exactly what to do, when, and how to do it. But here's the thing. Human is part of that equation. And when you are forced to change your actions without changing your beliefs behind those actions, you will be conflicted. And it is that conflict where you can learn about yourself and your beliefs, and you now have the opportunity to change those. And so that's my goal. I want to make sure that I'm teaching people how simple money really is and how to really get power over their money by detaching it and detethering it from money, the tool, from money, the habits and the beliefs that we carry. So for us as business owners, it's thinking like a CFO, acting like a player in the game of money. It's kind of like that dress for the job you want, not the job you have. There are actually neurobiology studies on things like that. It's basically the placebo effect. We go through the motions and eventually we're going to start believing it both ways, good and bad, right? So think like a CFO, act like a player, work with my CFO GPT. When you go to that landing page and you request access, it's going to give me your information so that I can add you to a Slack channel that we have to make sure if you have any questions about what the GPT is telling you, you have access to me and my team to get those questions answered. And that's what I have for you today. So I think we've got like 15 minutes left. If that's our Q&A time, we can roll with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And as she mentioned, you can go to that QR code. We'll just have her leave it up on the screen while we take some questions. If you have questions for Chelsea today, please feel free to submit them by clicking into the Q&A and sending them in there. We can get started. I know we have a comment here. Leonard says, there does not seem to be a reliable way to track where the money comes from. Consistently vote lead flow can also be a problem. Just kind of based on that premise, do you have any thoughts or tips, Chelsea?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that comes to my mind is a Clio or comparative. And if you're not in a position to want to have something like Clio that can help you track where these payments are coming from, even an Excel sheet. Look, we don't have to be fancy. We don't have to spend a ton of money, especially if you're a solo on these platforms. But you know who you're billing and for how much. And if you know that, you can create a data trail through Clio or through Excel that tells you how much and which matter type it is to be able to track it that way. And then consistent lead flow being a problem. So that comes down to marketing. That is marketing's job in a business, is to produce leads. And so, without knowing what exactly you're doing with marketing, but what I would tell you, the best place to start is where are people already hearing from you? Is it SEO? Is it Facebook? Like wherever your new clients are coming from already, that's been proven to work. So focus on that.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight. This next question is, how can I tell whether my firm's problem is truly profitability versus inconsistent revenue?
Yeah. So let me just say it this way. Inconsistent revenue is not necessarily a problem. It could be, I don't know what practice areas you're in. Inconsistent revenue can be managed with systems and with a few like Profit First with this cash management system. So, part of it is figuring out why is your revenue inconsistent? And are those things that you can control? Because if so, it may not have to be inconsistent. And if your firm is truly profitable, that's a very simple yes. You can see if it's truly profitable because even with inconsistent revenue, it should be profitable regardless of any volatility in cash.
Thank you, Chelsea. Our next question is, what financial reports should law firm owners review monthly so that they can ensure they're making better decisions?
I love it. And it's very simple. It is your income statement, your balance sheet. If you have a budget in place, your budget variance, because that's going to tell you, are you holding yourself accountable to these boundaries, these spending boundaries that you've put into place? And then I will say this, cash flow reports, like if you're in QuickBooks and you go pull a cash flow report, it's going to look very unhelpful. Honestly, their cash flow reports are for publicly traded companies. They don't make a lot of sense for us small business people, but that's a good place to start. So even if it doesn't make sense, the cash flow report is going to more or less tell you how much you kept in cash. Now, the only nuance, especially with law firms, cash flow, QuickBooks doesn't know how to treat your IOLTA transactions. Your IOLTA activity is going to be in that cash flow report, so you have to back it out of the numbers. So that one's a little bit more difficult, even though it's the most important, which is why it's unfortunate. But that's, also like in my framework, we have a very simple dashboard for that to avoid it. But those are the main reports.
Awesome. Thank you. Our next question is, how would you say a CFO style framework differs from what most small and mid-sized firms currently do?
Most of it are systems that you didn't know were either already happening or should be happening. So it's systems and the cadence of when these things should be happening. So without that understanding, you don't know what to look at or when. And then part of the framework is collaborating with someone like me on, okay, I'm doing this thing, I'm looking at this report, and here's what I see. What does it mean? It's answering that question of what does it mean? And if you don't have a CFO level advisor to ask these questions of, your bookkeeper is not going to be a good person because they don't understand that level of strategy in a business. And your tax person sees your numbers once a year. They have no advice to give you if they're looking at your financials one time and not asking you any questions.
Thank you for that insight, Chelsea. Our next question is, where do you feel AI adds the most immediate value when it comes to law firm financial management today?
The biggest benefit, even with my GPT that I've built, is people will feed it the financial reports and they'll only use it once. They don't keep coming back to it. Why? Because very quickly, what AI does is they confirm the problems that they already knew were happening, which is one of the reasons why a lot of us avoid looking at the numbers. We know exactly what they're going to tell us and we don't want to hear it. We don't want to see it because we're avoiding it. So I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is when you give it the opportunity to tell you what's happening and where to go to fix it. That's why that action piece is the most important. You have to go do something about it at that point.
Thank you, Chelsea. And then our last question that we have in the chat today is, what bookkeeping or reporting issues most commonly prevent firms from understanding their true margins?
That's a really good question. And I have to be honest, I don't like speaking negative towards other professionals that do what I do, but it is an unfortunate fact that a lot of bookkeeping services out there are not doing what they should be doing for you to even have a solid foundation. I can't tell you how often we get into a law firm's books and their accounts haven't been reconciled for months, sometimes years. They have loans on the balance sheet that are showing $5,000 overpaid. They're not overpaid. They just haven't been properly reconciled. And it's garbage in, garbage out. And you do not want to be making business decisions based on garbage. So, part of it is really holding your bookkeeper accountable to making sure that they're doing what they should be doing. And you're not going to know that if you don't look and review and dig and ask questions. And the second thing is that chart of accounts. So your brain digests things audibly, visibly. That's why we have different learning styles. But undeniably, nobody can escape that our brain digests data when it is visually organized in a way that supports us doing so. When your financial statements are visually organized in, like that example, a way that makes sense, it makes it a lot easier to really read the story of your numbers.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea, for answering all of our audience questions and for your presentation today. And thank you to all of you who submitted questions. We always really, really appreciate your participation. So we want to thank you so much for joining us for another Justia webinar today. As I mentioned at the top of today's webinar, if you are looking for a new opportunity to support your legal skills, or maybe you're looking for somebody for your staff that can support some of your financial needs that we discussed today, you can always visit Justia Legal Jobs. It's a comprehensive legal job board with thousands of opportunities across the US as well as remote roles. You can visit it at justia.jobs. You can also, as a Justia Connect member, post jobs for free. So if you're looking for a new person for your staff, you can always post on Justia Jobs and see if you get some responses there. Thank you all so much for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.